really see y'all as the competition, but if you go against me, you the opposition. But if you wanna test to look like you can close the distance, I'ma give it A forever since you're so persistent. With you, I'm just practicing, cause I'm back to back, let's get back to winning. As a matter of fact, I'm not that forgiving.
Hey everyone, welcome back. My name is Rohan Biju, and today we're gonna take a look at an inexpensive monitor that is highly spec'd out, and it's called the Koorui 27E1 QA gaming monitor. So I got this monitor on Amazon for about $165, and it's really good and really crazy about the specs you get for this price. So you get a 144Hz display at 1440p resolution with a lot of added features, which is pretty cool. And we're gonna cover a lot about this monitor today. So first I'm gonna do an unboxing, then I'm gonna show you how to set it up because there are some extra steps. Then I'm gonna show you the physical specs, then the display specs, and then finally I'm gonna give you my final thoughts and my final score for this monitor. So before we begin, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already to watch more future content like this. Like this video if you found this helpful, and comment any questions or concerns, and I'll try my best to answer them. So without further ado, let's go straight to the unboxing. The box is quite unique and probably my favorite looking monitor box I've unboxed so far. Let's pop the box open and slide the items outside. First, we have the neck of the monitor, which feels really durable, and then we can find two parts of the base, which we'll screw in later. Then we can find the power cable, and then we can find a display port cable. Then we can find a pack of screws for both the VESA mount and for setting up the monitor, and we finally get the paperwork for the monitor. Awesome, so now let's pull out the monitor out of the box and take a look at it. It feels really hefty and actually looks better than I thought it would. I noticed there's a matte coating and also feels really weighty, doesn't feel cheap at all. Awesome, so now let's set up the monitor. First, let's grab the neck, place one side of the base on the right spot and screw them in with the provided screws. Then we can do the same for the other base piece. Finally, we can align the neck to the back slot of the monitor and click it into place. Now you can place the monitor upright and start gaming. So that was pretty much it for the unboxing and specs. So now let's move on to the physical specs. The design of the monitor is actually surprisingly good for the price. It doesn't look cheap, and the monitor is made with pretty high quality plastic. There's no creaking or no obvious flaw at first glance when using the monitor. The stand and the base have hints of metal, and it doesn't feel cheap at all. The back has these red highlights which look really nice, and we can also find this red highlight on the top of the neck, which also looks like it could double as a headphones holder. The overall design kind of reminds me of how the Samsung Odyssey looks, and I'm very impressed with the overall build. The only major issue is the size of the base, which actually takes up a lot of space and has 10 inches of depth, so plan your desk setup accordingly. Now looking at the back, there's also a neat wire management system in the shape of a hole on the neck of the monitor, which in my opinion is the best way to do wire management. This guides all the wires to the ports and can give you a cleaner desk setup. The monitor on the front has decently sized bezels and a pretty large chin. This is quite standard for monitors, so I'm not complaining here. The monitor has a matte coating on the screen to avoid any reflections, and it does its job fairly well. I didn't have any issues with reflections and had a good experience. There is a general problem with matte coatings, and that is the image will appear less crisp, but I didn't really notice that in this monitor's case. The monitor is compatible with a 100x100 VESA mount if you choose to use this monitor with an arm, which is pretty nice. The only problem is that the VESA holes are quite deep into the back of the monitor, but Koorui has included some screws with tall standoffs to help with that issue. On the bottom right of the screen, you can find the buttons for the menu system, and it feels kind of unintuitive. You have the menu button, the left button, the right button, and a dedicated power button, which is really nice, and it's sort of labeled. The buttons are not very good overall, and they are very unintuitive, and they're really hard to get used to. Alongside that, it just makes the UI overall really hard to use, and it took me some time to get used to it. I preferred a joystick or something other than this, which would have been easier to navigate the UI, but in the end, this is decent for the price. Also, the UI doesn't have so much to offer, and it just has basic adjustments, which makes sense for the price. Awesome, so now let's talk about port options. The monitor has one HDMI 2.0 port, one HDMI 1.4 port, one display port 1.4, and one 3.5mm audio out port in addition to the power port. These are all the ports you need to get a max refresh rate at the max resolution for this monitor. The ergonomics of this monitor are not too great. There's no height adjustment, no swivel, but there is tilt. I mean, you can't really expect to have a ton of ergonomic features for a 1440p 144Hz budget monitor, but if you do want an added sense of mobility, just use a monitor arm. Also, it's worth mentioning that this monitor doesn't have inbuilt speakers. Awesome, so that was pretty much it for the physical specs. So now let's move on to the display specs. The monitor is a 27-inch VA panel with a 1440p resolution at a refresh rate of 144Hz. The response time on paper is 1 milliseconds, but I feel it's nowhere close to the monitor. The contrast ratio is 3000:1 on paper, but in reality it's close to 2260:1, which is still quite impressive. The brightness is 300 nits, but in my experience, it was quite low out of the box, and the monitor is decently suited for a semi-dark room. I mean, these specs by itself are impressive for the price, and it's pretty obvious that they're gonna miss out on big features just to get the price advantage. But in my opinion, it's worth it if you're planning to buy something in this price range. The monitor also has VRR support with FreeSync Premium as well as G-Sync, which is pretty neat. This is to avoid tearing, and I haven't noticed anyone playing using this monitor. One of the main issues for this monitor is actually ghosting, especially red and green ghosting. It is sort of apparent, and I noticed it when using this monitor, but it wasn't to an extent where I would feel like I couldn't use the monitor anymore. If you're a pro gamer, definitely don't go for this monitor at all costs. If you are buying this monitor, you're most likely looking for a high-res monitor with a decently high refresh rate to enjoy visual games or enjoy competitive games casually in a budget range. The contrast ratio for this monitor was pretty decent for the price, as expected for a VA panel. It's definitely better than an IPS panel, and you can expect contrasty images when playing games. Also, in terms of backlight bleed, this monitor has none, and for a budget monitor, I was thoroughly surprised to see that. The colors for this monitor are pretty decent and really punchy. The monitor covers 90% of the DCI-P3 color space and 100% of the sRGB color space on paper, and outputs 8 bits of color. Obviously, you're not going to buy this monitor for video editing or photo editing, but colors were pretty good. So if you want to enjoy visual games at a decently high refresh rate, then you can do this right here. Colors were alright for me right out of the box, and I didn't want to make any adjustments because they look great. But if you do want to adjust the settings to your liking, you can do that through the menu system, but there's not a lot of adjustability there, but you can still do it. Awesome. So now I want to talk a bit about productivity. So I've also been using this monitor as my own daily driver for just work and emails, everything in general, and I really liked it so far. There is really good text clarity. I like watching YouTube videos on it, movies, everything like that. And I think this is a really good everyday monitor for you to use. So if you're not into gaming and just want a monitor that you want to enjoy, probably a high refresh rate just because you like the buttery smooth effects, this could be the monitor for you. Awesome, so that was pretty much it for the display specs. So now let's move on to my final thoughts and my final score for this monitor. So in the end, the monitor provides a lot for the price range. For a 1440Hz monitor, 1440p monitor, it's pretty rare to see that in this price range, providing a lot of great things like great build quality. It just looks great overall, it looks premium, and I think I would use it as a daily driver if I needed to. The monitor overall provides quite a lot in the affordability price range with the 1440p display at 144Hz, and it's hard to find other monitors like this in this price range. The build quality is not too bad and pretty on par with mid-range monitors, but there are some areas they sacrifice and it's quite apparent. There is the obvious ghosting, which could be terrible for certain people, and there is obviously a lack of higher brightness, and the UI is a hassle to use. And there is a bit of a problem with the response time, a little bit of artifacting, but it's not very apparent. In the end, the monitor will serve all your needs if you're a casual gamer, you're not very competitive, and just looking to enjoy great visuals in games, and also maybe just watch videos, movies, anything like that. And with all of that in mind, the final score I would give the Koorui 27E1QA gaming monitor is an 83 out of 100. It does something really great. Obviously, it's not the best in the world, but it does everything it needs to for a budget range. So as always, I've left links in the description if you want to go purchase this monitor, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already to watch more future content like this. Like this video if you found this helpful, and comment any questions and concerns, and I'll try my best to answer them. So thank you guys for watching. Catch you in the next one. Peace.